Hey everyone, it's Joy here for Heffy Doodle. Today I created a fall coffee cup shaped card and it is so fun to make. And I also have a few tips for you throughout the video, so let's get started. Okay, so I'm starting with the coffee cup shaker die. I'm going to die cut this from some apricot cardstock. This is going to be the front of our card. And then I'm also going to die cut that from white cardstock twice, and you'll see why in just a little bit. Then you have the lid and you have the thing that keeps your hand from getting too hot that wraps around your coffee cup, and I can't think of what that's called. I'm die cutting those from craft cardstock, and then another piece of the lid from gold mirror cardstock, and I just thought I'd bring in a little bit of glam with that. So I've die cut those. And then we have the leafy laurel circle dies. I'm going to die cut that twice from noble fir cardstock. And there's also some other leaves that I've die cut from cilantro. And then we have these flowers that I die cut from white cardstock. I did this because I wanted to ink blend slightly darker than what the background of the front of the coffee card is going to be, because remember we die cut that from apricot cardstock. So I'm just doing a little bit of ink blending. Now here's one of my tips. This is kind of a time-saving tip, is die cut these images from colored cardstock and then just add a little bit of ink blending around the edges instead of white cardstock and having to color the whole piece and then adding your shadow areas and things like that. Just already start with colored cardstock and it really makes it go a lot faster, especially if you're doing something like mass producing cards. So I used cantaloupe on that first image there, and then on this craft cardstock I am using cappuccino, so we're going to darken both of those edges up. I love ink blending on big die cuts. I think it really adds some detail to it rather than it just being a flat colored cardstock. Another time-saving tip is using your colored cardstock and Copic markers. So instead of having to color all of these leaves, these wreaths, and those little leaves to the left there, I can just add some shadow areas with a darker Copic marker than what my colored cardstock is. So I'm just going to add a little bit of detail. I'm following the little embossed line from the die cut itself on each one of the leaves, and I'm going to do this for both of the leaves, or excuse me, both of the wreaths that I've already die cut. I'm doing the same thing here for these other little leaves, just a different color of Copic marker green. So I'm just going to finish coloring that up, and then we can put this together. So I like to double up my wreaths because it feels like it's much fuller, and I just offset it just a little bit. So I added some little dots of glue. I needed some areas to be open so I could tuck these leaves into it. And I'm sorry that my hand is not in full view. I'm literally just gluing it together. I will adjust this here in just a minute, but I apologize. So I take 4 of these little leaves and I'm going to tuck them in. 2 on the outside, 2 on the inside. I'm just kind of alternating as I go around. And this just adds another little color of green to this background, so it's not just one color. Then we have our little flowers that we did the ink blending on, and I just want to start placing those around. I don't want it to be even per se, so I'm not going to spread them out evenly. I am going to put them in little groupings of 2 and 3 and just kind of move it around the wreath. I like to lay things out ahead of time, and then I come back in and add my liquid glue. I'm just adding little dots and then putting those in place. So we're also going to bring in some pumpkin spice, like confetti mix, sequence mix from Heffy Doodle, and it is so pretty. And so that's going to add a little more of a textural difference, and they're kind of metallics, so that's going to look really nice on this. So I want to start by adding some centers to the flowers. So I'm finding some of the smallest, they're really kind of the same color, a little to the yellow side of the flowers, and I'm just going to put those right in the centers of the flowers. Then I'm going to take larger ones and fill in where we don't have flowers on the greenery. So it's just going to have a lot more going on, which I really like. And this sequence mix is absolutely gorgeous. It has kind of coppers, golds, a little bit of orange. So it's totally perfect for fall. I'm just going to finish those. I've got a few more to put down, just laying them in place, and then again adding my little dots of liquid glue. And there we go. Okay, in my Misty, we have that little part of the coffee cup that is, you know, to keep your hands from getting super, super hot. And here is another tip. We are going to mask off this sentiment because as you can see, the sentiment is too long for the surface that I want to stamp it on. So what I have done is I'm going to start in the center of this piece of cardstock and it's going to say pumpkin spice. So I am taking Heffy Doodle's low tack like Post-it tape, masking off the areas I don't want to stamp down. So the only area that's open says pumpkin spice. I prepped my cardstock with a powder tool. I inked up my sentiment with a clear embossing ink, removed the masks, and then stamped down my sentiment. So as you can see, it only says pumpkin spice. I'm sprinkling on some white embossing powder, and then I'm going to heat that with a heat tool until it's nice and melted. I'm going to do this now 2 more times. So now I need the top part that says living that or livin' that, because the whole sentiment says livin' that pumpkin spice life. So the top says livin' that, and I'm going to center that above my pumpkin spice sentiment that's already down. I'm going to close the lid to my MISTI using the grid to make sure it's nice and straight. Now I'm going to mask off the words that I don't want to stamp down. So I only masked off part of it. I'm going to make sure not to ink up past that. So you can see I'm just inking where I need it. Removing the mask, stamping it down, sprinkling on the embossing powder, and then heating that until it's melted. I do also prep the background with a powder tool every time because my fingers are all over this and I don't want white embossing powder to stick where I don't need it. So the last one is the word life, making sure I get that centered and spaced properly. And again, masking off with some low tack tape, prepping it with a powder tool, inking that up, removing the mask, and stamping it. So that's how you can change how a sentiment lays on your surface. You can cut it up, but if you don't want to, this is the way to do it, and it really is super simple. Okay, so I did mention that I was going to show you why we needed 2 of those white backgrounds because I wanted to adhere that to the back of the front of the coffee cup. So we have another one that's going to be the background because we're going to make this a card itself. So I'm going to finish adhering all of these images. Then I have I have trimmed a strip of cardstock that's slightly smaller than the top part of my card. And I folded it in half. I just used my little score buddy to fold it in half. I'm going to add some adhesive to one side, putting it at the top of the card because this is going to be our hinge. So our card opens up like a top folding card. Now I'm going to sandwich that with the back piece, which was another piece of white cardstock. So when you open up the card, it's white on the top and the bottom. That's why we needed 2 of the white coffee cup dies. So I'm going to adhere that together, and then this card is completely finished. Look at how cute that turned out. I would love to get this card. I hope that you guys enjoyed this project and I hope that you feel inspired. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye.